This is Gelson Garcia from the Natural Resources Governance Institute. For the last 4 years, Myanmar has embarked on a series of reforms, including the transition from military to civilian government. But what does this transition mean to the governance of its natural resources? The country is rich in oil, gas, coal, and gemstones. These resources are found in states and regions with high population of ethnic minorities, with high incidence of poverty, and where resource conflicts persist. The governance of extractive industries in Myanmar is also at the heart of the long-winding peace process, as well as the growing push for decentralization. I am joined today by Mr. Wong from Shirgas Movement and Minzo from the Jew Foundation to share us their perspective on what are the fundamental reforms that should take place in these sectors. Wong and Minzo, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wong, in your view, what is the most fundamental challenge Myanmar is facing to improve the governance of its extractive industries?
I think you know that Myanmar has been long suffering from a civil war more than 5 decades, 6 decades, and now recently we could see a kind of the political development right after 2010 election. But we still have a lot of the deficiencies, political deficiencies and institutional deficiencies. But at the same time, we really need kind of the serious change of the constitution in which how to locate people, community, and the right of the natural resources should be guaranteed within the constitutional framework. It should be prioritized in our country. That is most important to make this framework in order to benefit and not on sustainable development for the betterment of this country.
Myint?
I think the fundamental issue facing our country regard to the extractive industry is firstly is to fight corruption. So there's a huge level of corruption happening in our country, and then the same level of important issue is to respect community rights and ethnic rights, because most of so-called natural resources are located in the ethnic area. So their rights and their fair share of the resource extraction, that should be prioritized.
The incidence or frequency of armed conflict has always been associated with the way these resources are managed. Could you give me concrete examples of this linkage?
I think most of the ongoing conflict is obviously indicated directly deriving from the extraction of the natural resources in ethnic area, particularly in the construction of the pipeline associated with the human abuses and militarization. We have historical great concern about the environment and militarization in the southern Burma when the gas from Andaman Sea exported to the Thailand with the overland pipeline. At the same time, we do now have more than 20 times bigger project, sugar gas pipeline project, with oil and gas, with dual pipeline exporting from Western Ghats to the China border. Since the beginning of the pipeline construction, there has been a big clash between Burmese troops and ethnics on the fire route. And thousands of people has been forced to displace, and still ongoing fighting is, we could say it is directly deriving from the extraction of natural resources, since Burma to try to grab all of the natural resources and all their related property in those areas.
Myint, are there other cases of this linkage?
The one particular cases that I can highlight relate to natural resource and armed conflict or ethnic tension is in northern part of our country. Especially what we call Myint, the confluence of the Malika watershed area. This is the very cultural heartland of Kachin people, but the government's allowed to build a huge hydropower dam there to Chinese company, and also allow huge concession of mining in that area. So the Burmese government allowing concession to that ethnic Kachin area without consultation or without respect to the local people create huge tension and huge resentment. And even today we are witnessing that the fightings going on and conflict going on in Kachin state. But having said that, the ethnic conflict in our country, it partly related to the resource issue, but partly related to the ethnic identity. For many years, military government tried to crush that ethnic identity. So, issue of ethnic identity combined with the resource extraction from the ethnic area create a huge level of tension in many part of the ethnic area in our country.
And these conflicts are also linked with the quality of existing laws and the quality of institutions that execute these policies. Since 2011, we have seen a number of policy reform measures initiated from NIPIDEL, including the mining law. In your view, Myint, what are the most important changes that you want to see in a policy such as mining law?
I think the law that related to resource extraction, particularly the mining law, is designed to protect the elite, the business elite and government officials. So what we need to formulate is the law that really respects the rights of the people and the long-term sustainability of the country. We don't need the law that only protects the business elite and government official and to entrench their interests and to protect their profit. We don't need that. We need the law that can protect people and that can contribute to the development of the country.
Wong?
I think we have very big challenges with our existing law in our country. Most of the law are very poor. What we are facing today is due to the insufficient legal framework. Korea say we are facing the socio-economic problems. So in this mining law, I think we need kind of the mandatory integration with how local people must be protected. And those people must be part of the decision making and must have the right to release license to operate. As well as we need kind of the contextual disclosure in the law of the mining. And it must be guaranteed how the revenue from this mining industry must be developed for the country, especially for the socio-economic sector.
Are the policy-making institutions, such as the parliament and the ministries, prepared to embark on this law revision, which is based on solid information, quality and meaningful consultations, and all the other necessary tools to inform these reforms? What do you see there as the gaps?
I think the gap between the policy makers and parliamentarian and the situation on the ground is because of very long period of the authoritarian rule, there's not much practice of engagement between the people and academic and communities and policy level, sort of the government policy level people. So now we are in a transition. People are pushing for closer engagement, closer consultation to move things forward. So in that sense, what we still see as a gap is how we can come together on a platform that we can engage for proper policy formulations.
Thank you. Which then brings me to the role of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. As we all know, Myanmar is an EITI candidate country, and it has already embarked on a process which is called multi-stakeholder group, wherein this is a forum that brings together companies, governments, civil society, and other non-state actors that have not traditionally been sitting on the same table. Wong, in your view, because you have been active in this process, how relevant is the EITI process in informing these policy reforms?
Apparently, our government has signed our EITI very recently, and then we never had the kind of opportunity in the past to sit together, especially the civil society, the government, and private sector. I believe this is the best opportunity to address the issue, to recognize all other natural resources related activity, and try to overcome all this crisis, what we have been facing in the past. But at the same time, all of the various levels, the stakeholders need very much political will to move forward this process successfully with meaningful participation of the local people, especially the resource-based extraction project-based area. But at the same time, as our country, the lowest revenue index, as Revenue Watch has been highlighted, and we really need to reconfigure our existing policy related to the natural resource sector by changing farm policy into the practices with a transparent manner, to engage with the more local people, to practice all this disclosure related to the natural resources project.
Yeah, but if I could ask further onto that point, what progress or immediate impacts have the EITI processes brought out so far? If you could give me a concrete example of the progress it's making.
I think that after multi-stakeholder of the Myanmar EITI has been formed, I think we happen to prioritize in our scope study three sectors, especially the oil and gas sector, and mining sector, including GM. Now we have agreed to work feasibility study in the hydropower sector, followed by the forex. So we could say this is really a positive approach we have reached to come over sort this kind of the challenges step by step. I believe that there may be some important information we have been anticipating in the upcoming EITI report. But at the same time, we really need the willingness from the different level of the ministry, their engagement effectively in this process.
But this process also needs to have an uptake from the people on the ground. In your view, Myint, how can ethnic minorities and other non-state groups be more engaged effectively, and that they see that there's a value in participating in this process?
I think one benefit that we've been seeing in the EITI process in our country is that in the three entities, that civil society and business and government and policymaker, these three entities rarely come together. But now in the platform of EITI, these three entities started to engage. There's a long way to go, but they started to engage. So that's a benefit that we draw from that EITI process. But the thing is, like, we still need to engage more with the ethnics, the civil society and ethnic community, and so bringing them into particularly in the aspect of the civil society movement directly in the negotiation process and the consultation process with the business and government and policymaker will improve the situation more and more. I believe that that should be go this way.
Wong in Myint, thank you.